Thank you so much for joining us on the Dwelling Show. I'm your host, Ola Dantes. I've got the incredible, amazing Adam Adams. Hey, Adam, how you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you? It's good to see you again.
Yeah, doing great, doing great. Adam and I were just joking that, long time no see because I was on his podcast yesterday. Now he's on the Dwelling Show today. So, so excited to see him. So Adam, let's jump right into it. You're doing a lot of great things. I just saw you last week at the Best Ever Conference in Colorado. Your story is amazing. I cannot wait to jump into it. But just kind of give the Dwell listeners a little bit about who Adam Adams is and kind of what you've been doing and kind of what you're up to lately.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So I've been in real estate since 2005 when I bought my first piece of land. Basically, my dad gave it to me, and then I had to pay for it because of his taxes. That was the first thing I ever did, and I wasn't even really wanting to get into real estate. I thought about it. My dad was trying to talk me into it because we owned real estate growing up, self-storage, multifamily, single family, land. We pretty much had it all. And I collected rent for the first time when I was like 8 or 9 years old, because the person one of the people in the duplex was late. And so that's where I first learned how to collect rent, just one time though. But anyway, fast forward to 2007, I sold my property, made a lot of money. I bought it for $100, sold it for $12,500. And so what the return was great. And I was still in college in 2007, and 12,000 was pretty much more than I had made in any year combined. So working as a server part-time, and all of a sudden I made this big check. It kind of changed my life. And so being dyslexic, I never wanted to read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. I never wanted to, but my dad always told me I had to, and I needed to. And not only that, he also had this other book called, what is it called? Richest Man in Babylon. So those were the two that that was his philosophy. That was why he was buying land every year on tax deed. That's why he had so many rentals, multifamily, single family. That's why he bought he developed the self-storage units in Clearfield, Utah, because it was his thing. And I always thought of it as his thing until the day that I sold that land. And I was like, holy cow, I didn't ever work on this. I paid like 2 years of tax bills, 2006 and 2007. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I make all this money, which is more than I've made in my life as a college student in any 1 year. And so I just said, my dad's got something, and I'm going to kind of try to read that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Luckily, Robert Kiyosaki and I are not too different. He and I both don't love reading, so he made it easy enough to read for me. And I learned so much. It opened my mind, and I studied about him and found out one thing that most people don't know is that Robert is actually, he got his wealth in multifamily. He wasn't doing like fix and flips or single family rentals. Nobody knows that, but I studied him very in depth. I read a couple of his books, and at that time in college, I just decided, you know what? Okay, this is the way I'm going to go. So I started managing apartments. And so I managed a condo, a 4-plex and a 18-plex for this guy named Reed Quinn. And the 18-plex he bought for $1,050,000, and we sold it just 1 year later for over $2 million. So I was like, holy moly, like he didn't do anything. I was doing it. I was getting paid $10 or $12 an hour just managing the property. And I was like, there is really something powerful to this real estate thing. So I bought my first property, 2008. Not my first property, but my first multifamily property in 2008, and felt the crash. It was horrible. Went in 2011. I finally was giving that property back to the bank, a deed in lieu of foreclosure. Um, and I was afraid. I was scared for a little while. In 2015, I got back to flipping properties, buying on tax deed auctions. And fast forward to today, I'm partnered in, not the sole owner or anything like that, but partnered in 1,400 doors and enjoying it, having some cash flow, and trying to help other people brand themselves either through Meetup or podcast or social media.
Thank you so much for that introduction. There were just so many good things that you said in there. Definitely Meetup, we're going to, bite our teeth into in a bit, yeah. But if there's someone listening to this and thinking, hey, maybe I can start, my journey in land, maybe that could be because I don't have a ton of money or I can't raise money or whatever. Do you think that is a good path to kind of invest in general, right? Do you think like buying land, is that still a thing right now?
I believe that every asset class is cyclical in and of itself. Hotels are, apartment communities are. I think land certainly is. And right now, as we're recording this in 2020, um, my answer would probably be no. My answer in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 would have probably been yes. My answer in 2025, 26, 27 is probably going to be yes. But every asset class is cyclical, and it certainly could be an easy route. But with development right now, in my own personal opinion, what I've seen, what I've read, what I've experienced, what I'm seeing when I drive through different cities, is there is a lot of development happening right now. And when you look at CoStar, it's this place where they collect data, and it's mostly for apartment communities. But CoStar is showing that most of the cities in the U.S. in 2020, 2021, 2022 are going to have something called a negative absorption rate. And when there's negative absorption rates in most places, I think it's a bad time to worry about land because people are already we're already past the peak on some things. We're already having absorption rate basically means we're building more than we're building. Absorption rate is how much we're building versus how many people are going to live in those places. And a good absorption rate would mean that we're building and we can't keep up with demand. That's actually a good thing because that means that prices are going to go up. Land, we're still going to be selling land, more land, more people are going to be building. But when it comes to a place where the absorption rate is falling down and you have people building more than people are moving there, it's going to be harder and harder for people, and developers are likely to stop building. So land is probably at its peak right now in most areas. And so I wouldn't be buying right now. I wouldn't be buying land. I'd be buying something else, storage units, multifamily, something where we're going to be able to be better. And it doesn't mean apartments are good everywhere. So I'm investing in Oklahoma City, and apartments are going to be phenomenal there for at least the next 5 years. But in the same state, the next big city, Tulsa, has a negative absorption rate. So we won't touch Tulsa with a 10-foot pole, but we're very bullish on OKC. And the listener shouldn't just hear me say that there's bad absorption rates or good absorption rates, and it should mean something for their market. You got to study it. You have to just understand. And the best, easiest way is CoStar. They've got all the data. They know who's moving. They know who's moving out. They know the jobs. And if you're going into a place where there's a negative absorption rate, I don't care if it's land or if it's multifamily, you're going to probably lose. But if you have a positive, strong absorption rate, you're probably going to be at a good place.
So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm very insightful. So at the Best of a conference last week, we were at a round table, and there was a very interesting debate going on, right? And it was between the syndicators, so very intellectually stimulating group. And one guy said, "Hey, if I want to raise funds, I'm just gonna go and hit, all the family offices, big institutional guys, as opposed to like doing like meetups, like And he said something that was very impactful, and it was like, well, Warren Buffett doesn't have meetups, right? Like all these rich guys don't have meetups, and and they're raising funds for their funds, right? No pun intended, right? Uh, and that struck me because one of the avenues of raising capital is by having meetups, and obviously you've crushed meetups, in terms of how they're put together. What are your thoughts on that discussion, and where do you fall?
It really depends where you are. I mean, where you are in your journey. And it really depends on how much of the deal you want to be able to control. And so I think those are the two big factors. If you've been doing this for years and years and years, and you're already a part of maybe $150 million of multifamily, and it might make the most sense for you to go that route. It might make the most sense for you to talk with family offices, insurance companies, single equity placing companies, even people that are licensed, a securities license like a Series 6, Series 7, Series 43, whatever. There's a few of them. It might make more sense for you to do that if that's where you are in your journey. But still, there's a lot of people that are that far in their journey, and they still want to go with doing just syndications, hosting events, hosting workshops, hosting meetups, hosting webinars, and reaching out to people that way, friends and family, and also just growing their circle. So if you're looking at wanting to raise money from family offices, and for the few listeners that are listening, they don't yet know what a family office is. This is just going to basically be a high net worth family who has leadership that's main role is to place the capital into growth and to make sure that it preserves the wealth for the family, and it grows the wealth for the family, but more importantly, the preservation. So if they have this strong team, they're going to be looking at your team very, very closely. And if your team has never done anything, then it's an immediate red flag for the family offices. So they're going to say, well, how can I know that they're going to even preserve the wealth, let alone give us a return? Because they haven't proved the concept. So you're going to want to make sure that if you're reaching out to family offices, that this is something that you've done after you've exited a few deals. So you've entered the deal, you've exited the deal, and you have proof of concept. You can show them that you're worthy of working with them, and they're still going to control some of your deal. Most of them want to be placed in front of you. They want to be placed in front of any other passive investors that you might have. They want to only put down a certain amount of money. So they might do like 80% or 85 or 90% of the capital, which let's just call that $2 million. And then they're going to ask you to do 400,000. So still, you're going to have 400 grand to work with family offices. Plus, they're going to be paid before you. Plus, they're going to be able to control the deal whenever they want. Plus, they're going to have clauses in there to be able to take over the deal and become you and kick you out. So there's all of these little things to think about. So if somebody's newer, if somebody's getting involved right now, then they're going to want to work with two things: friends and family, and maybe start a meetup group.
Perfect segue to Meetup, right? So obviously I just moved my young family to Houston. We're now in Houston. I set up a Meetup group for the listeners. It's called, Houston Multifamily Association. So if you're in the Houston area, Texas area, I'm going to be setting up some events. But I don't really know what I'm doing, Adam. You've crushed Meetup. What are kind of like the things that one has to do to have a successful Meetup? Like, tell me everything.
Okay. Tell you everything. Great. All right. So hopefully the listener is considering starting a meetup. And if they're not yet considering starting a meetup, let me try to sell them on to why they should have a meetup in the first place. The first $4.3 million that I raised came from my meetup. So I didn't have a podcast yet. I didn't have a long track record or a history, and I wasn't being noticed by big investors either. But I had this little old lunch club that grew. It did grow a lot, but it was a little lunch club, and we were using it more as a mastermind event where we just came together, sat around a table, and had lunch and discussed different topics like investing out of state and things like that. And we went weekly, every single week, which you don't have to do, but it worked well for me. And in the beginning, it was not very much work because all I was doing was scheduling a venue and scheduling a topic, but I didn't have to prepare anything. I didn't need a microphone. I didn't need a speaker. I didn't need anything like that. So I was just showing up and masterminding with people. And this group continued to grow. We continued to not sell anything. That's one of your first lessons. We continued to not sell anything. We didn't have a coaching program. We didn't have anything like that. We weren't trying to make people work with us in any way. We just wanted to connect and learn and grow together. And that, because of that group, I was able to raise my first 4.2 million for our around 4.2 million just for our first few deals. Some of those deals were even fix and flips. Some of them were I did a mobile home and I did a land. I did a scrape, and then it was a couple. Our first 3 syndications. So because they knew me, they became my friends. And so what I'm trying to share with the listener is they're trying to say, oh, I don't know if I should even listen to this episode because I don't think I'm going to start a meetup. Well, think again, because it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're a real estate agent, I know a lot of real estate agents and title companies that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars more per year. And us, with our deals, we were able to easily raise money on several deals, fix and flip deals, self-storage, not self-storage, fix and flip, mobile home, scrape, and syndications. So there's the big, hey, look, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're going to get value when you grow your network. Because let's face it, your network is your net worth. And so whatever you do with your network, that's what's going to happen with your net worth. And so take us back to my very first meetup when I was saying that I was going to meet 52 times that year on Thursdays. And then I realized that Thanksgiving was on Thursday. So we did 51 times. But I said, hey, we're going to meet every single week. We're going to do it on Thursdays. And I don't care who shows up or what. We're just going to do a mastermind. And so this is how I started it. Number one, I took over a couple of other groups, 2 groups that I took over. One of them was this breakfast club hosted by an attorney, and one of them was another group. Don't recall what it was. I think it was like an out-of-state investors group. I took over them. When you are starting a meetup and you pay the price, you actually get 3 meetups for the price of 1. So once you go to that 4th, you have to pay much, much higher, but the 3 is the same price as 1. So what I did is I took over 2 and I started my own. And if anyone on the show, listening to the show, knows what split testing is or A/B testing, that's what I did with these 3 groups. So they all had the same events, but I worded everything differently to learn. I worded everything a little bit differently. So on one group, I think I overcame, I took over a breakfast club. So on that group, I said, hey, we're not going to do breakfast this week. We're actually going to do lunch this week. And this is what we're going to be talking about. And so I tried to speak their language. And, let's just pretend, because I cannot recall if this is the real truth, but let's just pretend that it was out-of-state investors that I took over. What I would have done is I would have said, hey, we're going to be talking about out-of-state investing tomorrow at noon. And if you really want to work on buying properties in state or out of state and want to know the difference, then you got to come tomorrow for the XYZ. And then on my other group that I started, which was called the Creative Real Estate Lunch Club at the time, I've changed it now. It's called the Adam Adams Real Estate Lunch Club, but it used to be called Creative Real Estate Lunch Club. And so I would say something, hey, we want to talk about creatively investing in state and out of state. So on all accounts, I'm trying to play to the player, and I'm split testing, A/B testing. And what I found was that the two groups that I took over, they were much less active than my brand new group. And I thought that was weird because one of them had like 900 members and one of them had like 300 members. And in my brand new group only had like 50 members. But I was getting out of the RSVPs for these events, I was getting a lot more out of my new group. And I didn't know why. And I think I know now. Here's the thing. If I was to give up a group right now and anyone else took it over, it doesn't matter. It could even be Ola, right? It could be you. But if you took over my group where I built the community, where people knew me, it's not the group that matters. It's usually the leadership that matters. So when you switch the leadership, they get disinterested. The second reason why I know that happens is because some of these groups that have been around since 5 years ago, 6 years ago, a lot of the people were only active on Meetup for 6 months or 12 months or 18 months. A lot of them were only active for a time. And so that means not only do the people not know me from Adam, even though my name is Adam, but also people are going into there and people are not going in there anymore because they pretty much left Meetup for a long time, but their account is still up. So for those two reasons, I suggest this. If you ever take over a group, because if you're a member of a lot of groups, eventually somebody's going to leave the group because it's not really being active and it's not really benefiting them anymore because they haven't done the things that will teach you on the show. And so all of a sudden they leave the group and Meetup says, hey, Ola, do you want to take over this group? Even though Adam just said that these are pretty much crappy, even though Adam just said that, you're going to still do it. You're going to take it over because there's some juice that you can still squeeze out of there that you wouldn't have been able to do just in your own. And so what I suggest to my clients, the people that I help start Meetup groups, is that take over those groups for sure, take over them, and then maximize the email list. Write it down, maximize that email list. Even if it's going to be 5 people out of the 2,000 that are a member of it, only 5 of them are even going to notice it, see it, recognize it, or take action on it. It's possibly 5 people that you didn't already have in your group, and it was free for you to take over. So I know that's a lot of information, but that's my first. There's my advice for taking over Meetups. Take it over, but don't assume that you're going to use it for a long time. Just squeeze the juice and then get rid of it. Some of the ways that I can suggest to squeeze the juice, things that I've done, is I send lots and lots and lots of emails that say, hey, we're closing down the breakfast club because we're now only meeting at lunch. And so if you want to go over to the lunch club, this is the link. But I send it a whole bunch of times. Plus, I go and have my VA, or I do it. I used to do it myself. Now I have a VA to do it. I private message everybody in my group, in my breakfast club group. I private message all of them and I say, hey, we're shutting this down. If you still want to connect with us, here's the link to the new group. And I private message all of them and I email all of them. And once I've been doing that for for 2 weeks, that's when I cancel it, when I shut it down so I can start a new one. So the next thing, man, there's so much good information for Meetups.
Hold on a second, Adam. So the other groups that you took over, what happens to the organizer? Does the organizer transfer all the information to you? I mean, how does that work?
Yep. So the organizer basically the organizer steps down as organizer. This is the main step, either because they haven't paid for it or they don't want to pay for it again. Like Meetup, I think, has a 2 or 3 year thing. So you pay for a certain amount, and then if they don't re-up the price, Meetup automatically says, hey, if you don't get this paid, we're going to give it to somebody else. And they give them warnings, and after they've given them warnings, they literally just they just offer it up to a few members, some of the more active members of the group, some of the members that maybe already have a Meetup. And so they'll basically just say, hey, do you want to take this over? And all you do is say yes, and now you become the organizer. So they don't have to give you anything. You just basically get everything. You just become the new organizer. You put your feet in their shoes, and you replace them. It's pretty much that simple. They don't need to give you anything. You become the leader, and it actually emails everybody who's a member of that group. It emails all of them, and it basically just says, hey, Ola is now the leader of this. But you got to act fast. You got to act really fast. When those come up, it usually goes out to probably about a dozen people, and 2 or 3 people want it really bad. 2 or 3 people want it really, really bad. So you need to just claim it the first second possible. You don't wait. You don't do anything. Just claim it. Don't ask questions. Don't look back. Don't collect $200 or whatever. Yeah, just do it. Go right forward with it, and that's really how it's going to start happening. And then, as I said, squeeze the juice, email them, PM them, and start getting people over to the other event. So I would start in the beginning by testing it, by actually putting up the events. So like if I have a lunch club, I'll post it on there, and I'll post it on my other lunch club. I'll do a couple tweaks so that it looks like a different event, all this kind of stuff. I'll do that a few times. Now, if 20 people or 10 people or even 100 people RSVP, I'm not gonna squeeze the juice. But if 2 or 3 or 1 person is RSVPing, but my other event, my other group has 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 people RSVPing, then I am going to squeeze the juice. So it's really important to mention that if I'm getting lots of activity, then I just keep going. If I'm getting almost no activity, then I do all the private messages. I do all of the emails, and then I shut it down.
Adam, that is so much juice actually that you've given us. I really appreciate it. I'm sure there's more, but we just don't have enough time. So we're definitely dwelling into the quick rounds. These are going to be quick questions, quick answers. You ready, sir?
Yeah, I'm ready.
First question: what makes you, Adam, unique? What is that differentiating factor that separates you from the next guy or the next girl?
One of the things that probably makes me a little bit unique is just that I'm not afraid to fail. Sometimes that comes to bite me because I try a lot of things. But probably I'm very, very optimistic. I don't get into negativity. I don't like to look at negativity. I don't like to be bogged down by people that are trying to slow me down. I just try to look at the positives, look at what we can do to make it better. And if I fail, I don't cry. I don't think I should quit being an entrepreneur or whatever. And I think that a lot of other people that kind of get into this, that's not natural for them. It's difficult for them. And that's probably what's helped me to get to the next level. It's just a bunch of trial and error, and I'm okay with error because I wouldn't be where I was if I didn't fail hundreds of times.
Makes sense. I know you said you're not a big reader. So what was the last book that you read, and what was the one thing you picked up from that book?
The last book that I read was probably Crushing It. I read 3 books this week, and I don't know which one was the very last one. It was probably Crushing It by Gary Vaynerchuk.
Great book.
And what did I pick up? Oh my gosh. Well, one of the things that I haven't all the way processed that I learned in that book was that Gary V suggests that you always get on the new platform. Always test the new platform. Always try to be the first to the next platform. That's one thing that I'm struggling with. I love Facebook. I love what happens on Facebook, what I can do with Facebook. I can see the wisdom in opening it up to a whole bunch of different platforms. And, when TikTok came out, he was touting it before I ever heard about it, So I mean, that's probably one of the biggest things, but I haven't implemented it because I'm wondering if it's the right move. But it's Gary Vee, and it's always been the right move for him. He makes a lot of money by being first to those platforms. So I'm still learning to actually do it. But I mean, I had a lot of really good takeaways, but the thing that was more contrarian to me was the thing that really stands out the most.
Yeah, great book. I read it. It's an amazing book. Last thing, what do you do for fun? You've got all these things going on. You've obviously got your family, you've got the business. What do you do for fun?
Yeah, great question. I don't do a lot of things for fun. I try to every Saturday if I'm in town or not speaking at a conference or whatever, every Saturday I try to take my kids to do something fun. This weekend it was drum lessons, Chuck E. Cheese. Sometimes we go sledding, skiing, climbing. So basically my outlet besides work, because I actually do love it and it's fun for me, my outlet is just watching my kids' faces light up, just trying to make memories with them, and that gives me energy for the next full week if I can get to that every Saturday. And then I do date nights every Monday, and that's pretty much what I do. Outside of that, I work a lot. I'm not going to lie, and I don't think everybody has to work a lot, but I'm working probably 12 hours a day at least, outside of those 2 days.
Oh, I can relate. Oh, I can relate. So if there's somebody listening and thinking, oh, wow, I really like Adam. I like what he's doing. I want to get connected with him. What is the best place people can reach out to you, get connected, know you better?
Yeah, if they want to learn how to do more on meetups or podcasting, just go to raisingmoneycoach.com. Raisingmoneycoach.com. It's not all about raising money. It's about anything branding. Some of my clients are attorneys and they're making a lot more in their business. But if you want to brand yourself, just go to raisingmoneycoach.com. You can find me, and you can find me there.
Adam, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I learned a ton as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, that was Adams, and I just feel like there's just so much to learn when it comes to Meetup. Of course, we just set up our own Meetup here in Houston Multifamily Association, just for folks out there who might be looking to come if you're in the Houston area or just the Texas area. But of course, just learning what we can do with Meetups. I really like what Adam talked about weekly meetups. I don't know if we have the bandwidth for that, but I think that's something to look at. Try not to sell anything in the meetups. Take over some of the meetup groups that are not active. We talked about split testing. It talked about the leadership of the group actually matters and trying to engage with the group members. So I think a lot that I picked up from. So I just want to say, if you're out there and you're considering maybe doing a meetup or not, I think it's something to think about. Obviously, you have to see if you have the bandwidth for that and the time to do it. But obviously, I'm a big believer. I've literally just been in Houston for about 4 weeks, and we already have our meetup up and running. So yeah, I really appreciate you guys for listening week in and week out. Of course, I always ask for your review. So if you've been listening to the Dwelling Show and it's been providing value to you, go and give us a 5-star, rating on iTunes. I really appreciate those. Just thank you, and thanks for listening. Catch you guys on definitely on the next episode.